know that none of you were in school 100 years ago. Not even close. However, you've probably seen some pictures and you've probably seen some history about what a classroom looked like 100 years ago. Does anybody know those, what it really looked like? I mean, some of you have probably seen those on TV. What's it look like? What did a classroom 100 years look like? Simple? Okay.
Small.
I'm sorry?
Small.
Okay. One room.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple grades, multiple ages. Okay. Little
I got one
outdoor toilets. Okay, let's get the priorities there, right?
one house schoolroom where all the grades are the same. My
Yeah.
cousins went to one.
Okay.
And they got, and then we got off before they did. We went out there, so we got to go one day with them. I didn't know how they ever learned because the teacher talked to this row and this row wasn't supposed to listen.
Heck, Don can't get any rows to be listening some days, I'm sure. It's kind of like, really? Come on, talk to me here. So, yeah, okay. Now we'll bring it a little bit closer. 50 years? Some of you were in school 50 years ago. What did the classroom look like? What changes have been made?
No, everybody got their own desk.
Everybody got their own desk? Okay? If you were in the lower grades. If you were in the upper grades?
Then I guess you had your own desk there too.
Okay.
And all in one big room if you were in high school. There were 4 classes in high school.
Okay.
And I went to city school.
There's computers in those schools, grades.
Well, now there are, yes. Yes. Okay. So go ahead, Pat.
We had a great big fish pond out of brick at one side of our room and goldfish in it. You wouldn't have that nowadays.
No, we
In
have fish-
kindergarten.
We have fish tanks.
This is different. You could have took a bath in there.
Okay. All right. So we start to update. We start to see some of those things. Cliff, I'm sorry, you were going to say
You
something?
didn't have to have as many supplies.
Yeah, you didn't have to have as many supplies. There you go. Huh?
We had chapel once a week.
And you had chapel once a week. Okay.
Always said my when you lose too.
Okay. All right. I remember going to school 40 years ago. And I remember being in a classroom, and I thought it was big, hot stuff, that we had electric typewriters.
Yeah, that was exciting.
So IBM Selectrics.
And they
You only had 2 in your classroom, huh?
could erase your mistakes.
Oh, they could erase
Yeah,
yours. That's
yeah,
right.
they had you could go backwards and it already had the
Oh
eraser
my
tape in
goodness.
it.
And nowadays,
Computers.
computers,
Processors.
iPads, don't even use
No,
paper and pencil.
pretty paperless.
That's right. You teach penmanship in kindergarten, in elementary school?
No,
Don't
no.
teach penmanship anymore?
I mean, we learned to write the letters. You learn to print your letters and,
Right.
and everything, but as far as cursive, we have it, but we don't, it's not a part of the curriculum.
So we're gonna have a whole generation that's just gonna put an X on a check. And they're gonna sit there and go, what the heck's a check? Right? Because they're all using desk. Okay. All right. So look at just in the last 100 years, the evolving that we have done in the classrooms. But there's one thing that hasn't changed, and that's what's supposed to happen in the classroom. What's supposed to happen in the classroom is that we learn. And we learn from, normally, the person up in front. But if you go back to the smaller schools, the first graders would learn from the 5th graders, and they would kind of have their peer teachers, if you will. We learned in different ways, but still the whole idea of going to school was to be able to learn. We're sitting in the classroom, we want to learn. But it takes place just a little bit different now than it used to in some regards. In some regards, it's the same. I really believe that. Just in seeing students nowadays, kids want to know that somebody cares about them. And when they care about it, when they pick that up from the teacher or from other peer leaders and everything, all of a sudden, they're going to start to try harder and to flourish in their learning. So it's the classrooms may look different, but still the idea of learning is first and foremost, or at least they intend, teachers will intend to have learning take place in their rooms. So if they're learning in the classroom, if we're going through that, then why the talk about a classroom now when we're going through with Moses? I mean, we talked about, we've spent the last 5 weeks on the life of Moses, going all the way back to his birth, and we now are to the point now where they are learning, the children of Israel are learning from Moses what they need to do. We talked last week about Moses bringing down the 10 Commandments and what that meant to the people, the rules and regulations that they had to follow within slavery, and they weren't quite sure now that they're free what they're supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do. So there was some learning going on, and the learning that was going on, the classroom that they had to learn from, was out in the middle of the wilderness. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, I have to think about what that looks like. And the only thing that really comes to mind for me, wilderness-wise, is when I think back on my time in the service and out in the middle of the Mojave Desert. And I would look out down the road and I would see absolutely nothing but sandbars. And the lake bed. And the lake bed was so hard that they didn't even bother to pave over it if they wanted to put out a runway, because it was as hard as concrete. So why bother to spend the money to pave it if it's that hard? But my wilderness was just looking out and going, man, the thing just seems to go on forever and ever. And so this was my picture of wilderness when the scripture text starts talking about Moses and the people learning in the wilderness. It was definitely a different look for a classroom than what any of us have experienced. Now, what about, we talked a little bit about classrooms. Let's talk about the teachers. What were the teachers like that you had when you were in school? Good and bad. Go ahead, Pat.
Old and ugly.
Old and ugly.
Aren't these good looking ones they have nowadays?
Old and ugly. Okay.
Oh, my goodness.
Boy, Don and Rich are going like, oh, okay. All right, smart. Okay. Yeah, to be teaching 7 or 8 grades simultaneously. Okay. 1 year to become a teacher. You had to go to college for 1 year.
Yep.
Yeah, wow. Okay. What else about the teacher? They didn't
A
just,
lot of nice one-on-one. You could,
you had some one-on-one time? Okay.
Classes were small.
Okay.
They used to get away with beating your hand with rulers.
Ooh.
Yeah, they walked around with them.
Exactly.
They
Yes.
just kind of smacked their hand.
I can remember my very first year teaching. And we went through and had a little introduction of each one of the students, and then I introduced myself and told a little bit about me. Now this was 1979.
Yes. It was 79.
And we were, and I, after everybody introduced himself, and I introduced myself and everything, I asked the students, I said, are there any questions that anyone wants to ask me? And one little boy put his hand up and he said, Mr. Moore, do you have a paddle? Seriously. And I said, if you find out where my paddle is, it's too late. I never brought that paddle out. Never. Never. And then, I'm reading in the newspaper today, or yesterday, that there was a young high school student, or in that of being redundant, a high school student that in Alabama, Arkansas, had walked out this week in with the solidarity with the students in Florida with the mass shooting. And the principal said, because you have walked out, you have ditched class, and you will have a punishment. You may have a punishment of either an in-school suspension or to be paddled. This week, the young man took the paddle. And yeah. Some of those paddles I remember were paddles with holes drilled in them so the air would flow back. Right? But I'm sitting there going, maybe we haven't advanced that far. But that was still going on. But yet we're just learning, and the environment of our schools, what we're trying to do is the same thing that Moses was trying to do 5,000 years ago. To teach the people that are put there in the position to be these students, the learners. And so we're just trying to figure this out, trying to just get a good grasp on what that could be, which shows me if you can teach in a air-conditioned building that can go into lockdown, and you can teach in the middle of the Mojave Desert, outside in the afternoon, you can teach darn near anywhere. I mean, that's a pretty wide spectrum. I mean, it really is. Thinking about where you teach and how you teach. And so we're learning, Moses is trying to teach the children of Israel what they need to learn, how they need to respond to that. And in one regard, it's a positive thing because people were teaching from all over. I love being out at school when they bring in the fifth graders and bring them in to be reading buddies for the first or second graders. I love that. I love that. Daryl, you've seen it. You've done reading out there, and others, Pam, and others have gone out there. Carol, you just go out there and you just see them, and these little ones are just like sponges. They're soaking it in. And the fact that I've got a fifth grader that's teaching me. That's big stuff. That really is pretty cool. It really, really is. So, in Exodus chapter 18 that we read just a little bit ago, Moses is both teacher and leader. But he's also a student. I don't know if you picked that up. But Moses is a teacher and a leader and a student all at the same time. He was a student under the tutelage, if you will, or under the advice of Jethro, coming in and saying, Moses, you're going to burn yourself out. You're doing way too much. You need to share the responsibilities. You need to share this burden that you've got of trying to judge all the people. And then Moses turns around and has to be leader, teacher, judge, and everything else to the children of Israel. So Moses began to realize, say, maybe this whole idea of lifelong learning is really true. I need to keep learning, and I need to know how better to serve the people as their leader and as their teacher. Now the question is, how did Israel do? How did these students do when they were learning from Moses? How did they do? Did they learn what Moses was teaching. Well, some would say they did pretty well. All of a sudden, you've got situations where Moses is teaching them, and there are certain things that they just grab a hold of and say, yeah, I really like that. That I can really grasp. And then you have the times, like we read about in Numbers, where all they can do is gripe and complain and moan and groan. And it's like, Moses, we would have been better off back in Egypt. And I'm trying to think of what Moses would do with something like that. The children of Israel are complaining about what Moses is trying to teach them, and they said, we would be better off back in slavery. Seriously. We would be better off enslaved and not being able to have to make any choices and just told what to do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The whole thing. And you know, I'll be honest with you, if I were Moses, there'd probably be some time where I'd say, go. Go. Get out of here. I don't want to. Fine. You want to go back there and realize later on how good you had it out here? Now, it wasn't great, but it was a whole lot better than being enslaved and told what to do all the time. But Moses didn't. Moses used that time as a teaching opportunity, and hopefully the children of Israel would begin to come around to what Moses was teaching. Now, Moses was also serving as judge, and to serve as a judge for little things, I mean, as I'm reading this, I'm thinking about those little issues that take place in the classroom. You know, the little things, really. He took my pencil. He took my pencil. I don't have any paper. There's my eraser. And all this other little diddly stuff. I never asked her. But my guess is Mimi doesn't want to deal with who's got whose pencil as principal of a school of 700 kids. Send me the big stuff if you want to. But don't send me this piddly little stuff that you can deal with there. Okay, I get it. Understand that. So that's what Moses was trying to do now with the children of Israel, saying, hey, I'll do the big stuff. Let's kind of spread the wealth out or spread the responsibility out and let others serve as judges over the smaller things in life. It's what the children of Israel needed to see. Moses, it wasn't just all the people and Moses. They had to set up some sort of levels, if you will, of what eventually gets to Moses. It would be as if we had no court system in the United States except the Supreme Court. Every little thing's got to go to the Supreme Court. Everything. A traffic violation, when the camera pulled you over in Sioux City, has got to go to the Supreme Court. That makes no sense at all. I sure wouldn't want my turn for life if that was the case. And this is what they're saying. This is what Moses is saying. Or Jethro was trying to teach Moses, come on, let's kind of divide this up a little bit. And you can learn and you can teach, but not every little thing that's got to be done for the children of Israel. Now, so where does this put us today? We're at the point, most of us are out of school. Most of us have been through enough schooling, except for some of our teachers that have to go through continuing ed all the time. And it works. Sometimes we have to go through continuing ed, and I go to conferences that count as continuing ed. But for the most part, we're not sitting in class anymore. So how do we keep learning? How do we keep learning? I'll tell you where I learn. I learn at Casey's.
That sounds like a good place. I don't think that's one of the things that's gossip.
Oh, is that not? No, that's not. Ed can be my teacher. Terry can be my teacher. Kenny can be my teacher. The guys that are there can be my teachers because I want to learn. I'm still learning. I'm still learning, and I want to learn as much as I can about as much as I can. And when I go to the post office, you're thinking, post office, all you do is get the mail. No. Man, there are people that will come in there and I'm learning stuff. You know, I learn those things. I want to be able to be a learner no matter where I go in life. No matter what I do in life. I want to be able to continue to learn. And we need to put ourselves in that position where we want to continue to learn. Why do I have a book study with another pastor once a week? Why do I get together with other pastors on a regular basis to talk about what's going on in their churches and what's going on with that? I want to learn. I want to learn. I don't want to ever stop learning. Because I honestly believe when you stop learning, you start dying. And I'm not really fond of dying right now. I want to keep learning. I want to learn as much as I possibly can. With the idea that I can pass that on. Now, I have to admit, I don't always learn from those who are older than I am. Sometimes I learn from those who are younger than I am. And I learn from my children. I learn stuff from my kids, which is kind of humbling, I must admit. I learn from my grandchildren.
That's scary.
What, did they know that much more, or that I'm still trying to learn? Yeah, both, yes, okay. You know, we're just, you know, it's like, where do they come from? They come up with things, and I'm like, wow. It's amazing. How did you figure that out? Or how do you have that attitude, or that feeling about different things that are happening in your life that are happening in my life? And I'm learning from the kids. And I don't mind that. I don't mind that. And I can tell him, I said, man, Papa didn't think about that. Oh, sure you did, Papa. No, I didn't. Man, I didn't think about that. But yet, I continue to want to learn. And the children of Israel were put in a position where they needed to continue to learn. And obviously Moses, as leader, was in a position where he needed to continue to learn. Me too. We all need to continue to learn. I mean, do we just come to church for the coffee and donuts? Sounds good. That's first step. That's right. That comes before the call to worship, right? But you know, we want to learn from what's going on. We want to understand what this book is all about. And this is where we learn that. And we want to be able to see that and experience that. So the lessons can take place anywhere. It's like the classroom. It doesn't have to be a one-room schoolhouse. It doesn't have to be a multi-million-dollar facility with all the updated equipment and the air conditioning and the computers and all the other technology that's there. It can be any place that we can learn. We need to learn those lessons because, you know, it helps us to get through life. It helps us to sit there and go, man, you know, I just never looked at it that way. And all of a sudden it's like, it makes a difference. It makes a difference how I live my life, the stuff that I have learned from you. And there's not a single person here, including the littlest, that I haven't learned something from. I've learned things. I sit there and I try to learn as much as I can. And I sit there and I see great wisdom coming from many of you. And I'm just like, I just want to soak it up. I just want to be like that sponge and get as much as I can. I want to learn. I need to learn those lessons so I can get through life. Because some of you have been through all of you have been through things that I will never go through. And I want to know what that's like. I want to know what that's like. I want to know your story so I can better equip myself for living my life. We're not going to make it through life unless we continue to learn. We're not going to make it. And God is just telling us, say, look, I've got these teachers. They may not have the badge that says educator on it. It may not have the badge that says teacher on it. But I'm going to learn from people. You're going to learn from others that may or may not be professionals in the field. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for that. And Moses, look, what did Moses say at the tail end of the passage in Exodus? After his father-in-law went home, Moses listened to his advice and followed his suggestions. He learned. And God called Moses to lead the people. And yet Moses felt the need to continue to learn. We need to do that too. And we can do that when we just open ourselves up and say, God, okay, fine. What's next? What's up? What do I need? And God's going to bring that in and teach us through others. So be open. Be ready to learn from so many different sources and see what God has in store for each of us. Now, to prepare ourselves better for Easter and the time to follow. Let's pray. Gracious God, for all that you do for us, we give you thanks. For providing those individuals in our lives that can teach us, that can help us, that can show us what to learn, can show us how to live, can show us different things so that we can be better equipped to serve you and serve others. Lord, help us to want to be taught, to want to learn. We'll give you the glory. In Christ's name.